everyone. Welcome to another episode of Marketing Matcha for your dose of unapologetically unfiltered, slightly chaotic, and fiercely opinionated, but always data-driven marketing insights. I'm here today with Jana. Unfortunately, Ahmed could not be with us because he is stuck in Jordan. We hope he'll be back safe and sound with us for the next episode. But today we're discussing a scary topic. We're talking about shadowbans, the algorithmic mystery that haunts every marketer and content creator. Is it real? Is it a glitch? Or is it the internet's silent punishment for breaking invisible rules? From banned hashtags to sensitive topics, we're digging into what gets your content quietly buried and how you can avoid the digital ghosting boogeyman. All right, so let's start with the simple things. I know a lot of you probably may have not heard of it. So Jana, what's your definition of a shadowban, and do you think it's real?
Hello everyone. So yes, I do believe that shadow bans are real. We have had multiple cases of shadow ban, and I've seen it different ways from different scenarios that we'll get into later on today in the podcast. So my perspective of shadow bans is that I think I'll give an example which is easier, is that sometimes you watch an influencer or a brand and they pop up a lot on your stories. Stories are the easiest thing to say. So you'll see them on daily basis, like the first few stories, that's the person. And then suddenly they start disappearing. Poof, poof, exactly. So this is my perspective on shadow ban. So it will not stop you from posting, scheduling your posts or anything. It's just that slightly, slowly, those people will start disappearing from your feed on multiple social media platforms.
It's kind of like being at a party and then you just kind of stand in the corner and just kept getting pushed further and further to the corner, and then you just go like, okay, I'll just leave.
Oh, that's so sad.
Right?
That's true,
That's
yeah.
my analogy of it, like social media disappearance. But here's the thing. A lot of people are confused about it because sometimes what they do is they'll post at the wrong times and then they'll immediately think, I'm shadow banned because I'm not getting the right views. So a lot of people also think of that. I think that's why the confusion is there and everybody jumps to straight away say that I'm shadow banned, right? And by the way, social media platforms, like none of them has ever admitted to the existence of a shadow ban. They have all denied that it exists. So I understand why there would be a confusion, but how do you deal with that? What do you think is happening with people?
So I'll point out the topic about scheduling timings. So obviously there are specific times where you should go on social media and post, and you should test it around to see what fits you
Based on
best.
your content, yep.
And some social media platforms do give you the best time for your audience, so please look into that. So it does not mean you're shadow banned if you're posting at the wrong time. That might be the cause, but still you will get a bit more of like a higher indicator that you're shadow banned. That because even if you post on the wrong time, people will still see your contents, just like less audience will see it, rather than like, let's say for example, instead of getting 10 likes, you'll get like 5. But if you're getting like 1 to 0 likes to 2 likes, this means you are shadow banned. So a good example is that there's a study that was done by University of Michigan, which showed us that so many people do get confused on the concept of shadow ban and what it actually means. So they did conduct surveys and interviews to collect their data. So there were interesting comments from certain participants that have said that they think they're shadow banned because they think they're shadow banned that no one can see their tweets. People would make comments like also that they've been put in Twitter jail, or that they cannot tweet for like 24 hours. So I think that contradicts the idea of being shadow banned, because shadow banned still allows you to do your tweets, do your Instagram posts, TikTok posts. It's just that people are not viewing your data. So
yeah, I feel like they're confusing an actual 24-hour ban, like a full-on ban, with a shadow ban. And I feel like a lot of it has to do with the transparency of social media platforms, though, because when they don't tell you you've been shadow banned and you never get a notification. A ban, you do. You're like, you're banned, you're off. But with shadow ban, it never happens. And so a lot of people are very skeptical about it too, right? And they're like, no, you're lying to me. There's something something going on. You're limiting things and you're not telling me why. So they come up with reasons that they've
They're
gathered.
just trying to discipline us in that way.
Discipline is one way to put it.
I mean, it's in the word, it's shadow, so like it won't be clear. Unfortunately, they will not communicate it to us. And I feel like a ban is much better than a shadow ban, because at least with a ban, you know that you've had some sort, like you've said something inappropriate or you've done something wrong where you'll avoid it. But with shadow ban, it's just like you'll never know.
Yeah, and I think they do that because when you're banned, you'll just stay off the platform for however long you're supposed to be off it, or you'll come and fight the ban and appeal your case and be like and go back to what you were doing. But shadow bans, the topics that you end up getting shadow banned for are a little bit more controversial, and they can't come outright tell you don't talk about that because there's a degree of freedom of speech involved and all of that, especially since global things, so they can't all agree on the same thing. So what it ends up doing is they kind of make you kind of still stay on their platform and you make use of their platform, get money out of you essentially. But like,
of course, yeah, because when people start getting shadow banned, they start doing mistakes, like because they're unaware that they're being shadow banned, they would go and start boosting their content, putting a lot of money on that, which also will make it worse, by the way. Putting in money and people are not seeing it, it will increase the shadow ban, because again, you're adding certain red flags for them and you're boosting that content.
Yeah, it exposes your red flag content even more. Although they actually have a process for that, because you're putting in money and you have to like actually get that doesn't happen as often. Those flags don't get caught, like don't get allowed to be posted as often because your ads have to go through review, right? So they have to tell you, yeah, no, we can't post this one. And so a lot of people then realize what was the thing that actually got them shadow banned, because they're like, oh, it was this one.
Right, but that usually does happen. They will actually stop running the ad due to the review process. But a lot of the time also it can be very confusing, don't you feel so? Because sometimes what happens is they don't tell you where the issue is.
Yes,
Which
100%.
It's really triggering.
Yeah, they'll just be like, the content does not meet our guidelines, but they
Community
don't say,
guidelines.
Yeah, but they don't tell you which part. And have you ever read the community guidelines? Do you know how long it is? No, we have to say we have, because we're a marketing agency. we have, guys, we have.
Yeah, don't
Actually,
worry.
I have. I gotta say I have, because I just like enjoy reading, but a lot of people don't. So they never find out, of course.
I mean, for content creators, I don't think reading the community guidelines is easy. A lot of them do hire external agencies.
And they do change all the time as well.
Yes.
So now the thing is, by the way, in terms of the transparency and the guidelines, do you think that automation also becomes one of the problems? Because I feel with how huge these platforms have grown, a lot of the times it's not a person who is moderating your content, it's just bots and an automated process. So as a result, it even amplifies the fact that people won't know what they got banned for, because it might even be a content that doesn't break the community guidelines.
I do find it with the automation process, it is more difficult to stay with the community guidelines, because obviously at the end of the day, it's not a human who's processing it. So it might be a word that was said in a different way, whether you're with this guideline or against it. Let's say you're with that guideline and then you just mention a certain word, automatically shadow banned.
Yeah,
so
flagged, yeah.
Yeah, you'll get flagged even though
the context is out the window. Yeah,
exactly. So obviously that's a very big challenge for content creators, businesses to accommodate now.
Yeah, like you can, one of the Gen Z favorite phrases is, I'm gonna myself, okay? They say that a lot. Now, I'm not gonna say it because this is going on YouTube and it's gonna get flagged straight away if I say that, but you see how like they'll say it in a joke and it's a common thing. They'll be like, I'm gonna myself, and then goodbye, you're off the platform, context is gone.
Yeah, of course. That's why we have to be very careful with the content we're saying, especially for Gen Zs, because I know they really love TikTok.
And they're very free with what they,
And
with
they're
how they
very
speak, yeah.
free. So automation does cause a shadow ban. So please watch out with the words you're saying. And then we want to jump in also into the hashtag processes and different ways where you can get shadow.
Before we get into that, though, I have one thing. You know how we say transparency? We need more transparency from these platforms to be able to know better what to do and what not to do to get banned. But there's the other side of it now. If there is a lot of information and transparency out there, don't you think that kind of gives a roadmap to spammers and people who want to break the community guidelines and they'll just find the loopholes in it?
That's why I do believe that a bit of moderation on those platforms and a slight shadow ban when needed is really important, because at the end of the day, not everyone is ethical on those platforms. There are people who use it in different ways, and of course we have a lot of children on that platform and a lot of teenagers that we should be really careful for, and all of us should actually be extremely respectful when we go on those social media platforms, because we might teach other people the wrong things. And we spoke about in our last podcast how Gen Alpha is getting really influenced and actually learns a lot of content from social media itself.
Quite true. So yeah, unfortunately, the transparency is good to have. It's the few bad apples that do end up ruining.
Unfortunately, we do love transparency, but also we need to protect our community.
Yes, there is that. And then the few people that don't deserve it end up getting caught in the crossfires, unfortunately. But yes, now moving on to what to do not to get shadow banned, the tips that we have for you and what gets you shadow banned. Let's first go into that. What gets you shadow banned, Jenna?
So obviously you'll always get confused with shadow bans because there's multiple reasons why you got shadow banned. It's either a phrase you have said, a certain word. It can be even a small emoji that you think doesn't represent anything.
Oh yeah.
And then there's also the hashtag problems, certain discussions you have on lives that you open, especially on TikTok, that can get you shadow banned, and different violations. I think you can get into
the details of it. Yeah, I'll get into the details of it. So one of the things actually that can get you shadow banned, swearing and curse words actually trigger the algorithm quite badly now, especially because, as you mentioned, there are a lot of children on these platforms, so they've been a little bit heavier on this. For a while, I remember they used to be quite heavy on it, and then they kind of lowered that, especially on certain platforms. It was not as bad as long as you said your content is not for children, swearing was allowed, and so on. But they've kind of clamped down on that on other platforms. Like TikTok is very serious about swearing and cuss words, and Instagram is on and off. Sometimes you get away with it, sometimes you don't. Another thing is to avoid fights. So getting into fights in the comments section, which is something I'm very guilty of, can get, like, if a lot of users end up muting you or blocking you or reporting you, that flags your account. Everybody likes a little bit of drama and resharing the drama on their stories. That's been one of the main things that people make content on, even just drama. But that can get you actually shadow banned. So because people will end up reporting you. Using hashtags on, specifically, by the way, X, which formerly known as, Twitter, don't use hashtags anymore. They have kind of said that don't use any hashtags until your ban is lifted, because what it does is, like, if you've been shadow banned and you're trying to reach a bigger audience using these hashtags, it ends up extending your shadow ban because they see you trying to sneak out of the shadow ban. And another thing about hashtags, which we mentioned across our content on our social media in general, we've said don't use more than 5 hashtags. When you use more than 5 hashtags on Instagram, it starts to flag it as you being a spammer and trying to reach a bunch of audience. So it puts you in a shadow ban. Also, using the same hashtags over and over gets you shadow banned. So that's a problem. And having certain third-party applications and services that automate your social media posts can also get you shadow banned. So a lot of social media influencers will have these third-party apps incorporated into their accounts that does all the scheduling and to make it easy. Don't spam, obviously. If you're posting a whole bunch of things all of a sudden on social media, it's like one post every 12 hours in general is the sweet spot. And one YouTube video each day. Well, not like a short and a full video. No, short, they're separate. But if you do 1, 2, or 3 long videos and 2 or 3 the short videos, that can also flag your account. Sensitive topics, obviously, and nudity, obviously. What else? Frequent automating your posts, repeated minor violations even, and unusual login activity. So let's say you have an account that multiple people are logging into from different IP addresses, or let's say you bought an account, and which is, by the way, not allowed. You're not supposed to buy accounts. That is a big no-no on social media. If you bought this account and it was previously owned by someone else who was logged in from a different IP address, and then they see a suspicious login activity from a different IP address, they kind of think that this account is being used for, malicious intent, and it will get flagged. So marketing agencies, beware, okay? Beware.
Too many rules.
Too many rules. Yes, there's a lot of them. Managing multiple accounts, running several accounts on the same browser or same device can also trigger a suspicious activity from Instagram because it thinks that you're using multiple accounts to spam and fake bot accounts, basically. That can be a problem. So again, if you're a marketing agency, you will need to have logins on different accounts. One thing to do is to actually have incognito browsers. Log in on those accounts with incognito browsers. So it's not the same device and
that
same.
would be very beneficial for freelancers.
Yes, it would be. So there are other tools as well, obviously, that you could use, but we'll get into that at a separate segment. But that's one easy way to do it. Kind of annoying because you have to keep logging in, but
Don't you think those restrictions, those many restrictions actually harms a lot of different fields?
Yes, it does.
Like, for example, according to Allure magazine, that plastic surgeons do complain that their posts are getting shadow banned just because it shows that they're posting some nudity when it's just their work.
Yes.
But it's not even plastic surgeons. Like, there are like spas, salons, beauty lounges, clinics, aesthetic and non-aesthetic, of course. Those people need social media now. People no longer search on websites, including Gen Z. We'll jump into the Gen Z topic again. So many people now actually use Instagram and TikTok. Like, for example, for me, if I want to know where to go, I search on TikTok. I no longer search on Google for such things. How do you think that impacts their income?
A lot, actually. And yeah, that's one of the main problems that with automation that we mentioned, by the way, because it's the automation that picks up and thinks that this is flagged as nudity when it's just literally someone's arm getting a surgery. And of course, the red substance, I'm not going to say the word. I'm not going to say the word, the red substance that we leak out. That is seen as like violence. It's flagged as violence, and that's a surgeon's job. It will be shown. So
very unfortunate, actually, because a lot of awareness topics, especially when it comes to your health, can be promoted on social media rather than influencers talking about makeup brands or the beauty industry or creating this ideal way to look on social media and making so many teenagers feel self-conscious about themselves. Instead, there are so many other topics that we can actually discuss on social media that are all red flagged and cause a shadow ban when it can create awarenesses for so many other people. And it's not only the medical industry. There's so many other topics that get shadow banned, like talking about how people are being mistreated in so many other areas in the world.
Yes, it's considered controversial topics. Yeah, because social media, it seems like it wants to remain as a superficial platform, and they don't like deeper things that may cause controversies and so on.
Of course,
so.
and don't you feel like this has been going on for ages? Like, if you look back before social media, magazines, newspapers, television, certain shows, it's always related to unrealistic expectations from humans that causes a lot of problems, like eating disorders for people, beauty obsessions, and so on. When,
it's life, it's reality. Yes, agreed. It has always been happening, and that's the thing. The shift now, which is why a lot more people are getting shadow banned, I believe, is because a lot more people want authenticity and realness, and platforms are still like, no, but it has to stay perfect.
This takes us back to our last podcast that we spoke about, is that Gen Z likes reality, and then if you're forbidding that reality from them, then their interest in social media is really low.
Yeah, which is why we said they're spending more time offline now and going out to be in the real world.
And they're engaging in experiential marketing more. And if you even realize, we mentioned it last time, that most platforms are actually for millennials, and that's why Gen Z is really loving TikTok, and TikTok is starting to restrict so many things.
I have a feeling we're going to see another social media platform pop up. I mean, there is a platform that is very unfiltered, but I do not like that platform. It has gone beyond, there are certain rules that still need to be in place. We can agree on that. But one such platform is a streaming platform that is becoming quite popular and well known for having almost no content moderation, which is Kick. It came up after Twitch was becoming a little bit more restrictive on such things. So we'll see more and more such platforms pop up, and then there'll have to be a balance in these platforms between proper moderation and transparency. You don't get shadow banned, but you can still talk about real things.
Of course, that's important because as we mentioned earlier and you just mentioned, we still need some restrictions for certain people out there, and obviously teenagers also get into bullying stage at certain time, unfortunately. So we have to be very careful. But again, the restrictions are a bit extreme. So minimizing those restrictions would actually change a lot around this world.
And the thing is, the moderation is fluctuating every time. It's not that it's a steady thing and it's like always like up there. No, it keeps going up and down based on whatever is going on in the world, which is, I feel, not right. Like, if you're gonna stick to rules, keep them this way. You want to increase the rules, go ahead. But if you're just doing it per situation-based thing, it ends up causing chaos and people get shadow banned for nothing most of the time.
Of course, yeah, and that's very unfortunate.
Yes, it is. But yeah, speaking of hashtags, by the way, and getting banned because of hashtags, here's a little funny little bit, since we were talking about like lots of serious things all of a sudden. I'm gonna give you guys a list of so there are a couple of websites that you can check banned hashtags on, okay? And we ran through some of them and we saw the list of the hashtags as well that they had, and I saw that a couple of very funny and interesting hashtags are banned. Would you like to hear those?
Yeah, please.
You're actually gonna be like, huh? Most of the time for these. So everybody is beautiful is a banned hashtag.
Okay,
I'm not joking. Hashtag everybody is beautiful is a banned hashtag. And I'll get into the reasons as to why.
Back to our topic, just like a few minutes.
Confusion. Yeah, so I'll tell you why some of these hashtags get banned as well, but like a lot of people won't even know that they're banned. Hashtag A-H, is a banned hashtag. Hashtag always is a banned hashtag. Hashtag date. If you're going on a date and you're posting your story, hashtag date, you're shadow banned, honey. Don't do that. Yeah. Hashtag Bitcoin. We know why that banned. We know why that one's banned. Hashtag high tech. Hashtag income. So these three actually are very specific to businesses, by the way, because if you actually have a legitimate cryptocurrency business and you're using hashtag Bitcoin or hashtag income, high tech, etc., you may be at risk of getting yourself shadow banned. So be careful, businesses out there, with what you're using. Hashtag Lulu is banned. How long do you think it took before the Lulu hypermarket here realized that that's a ban?
Maybe they never realized it.
No, I actually went on their account. I went on their account to make sure, are they still using hashtag Lulu?
We're sorry for that.
Fortunately, they're not. They are using hashtag Lulu UAE or hashtag Lulu hypermarkets. I think they discovered it the hard way. I don't know. I wish there were like longer archives to see.
I hope the damage wasn't big.
I hope so. I hope they never used it from the beginning. But let's see. But yeah, funnily enough, Lulu is a champion in League of Legends for my gamers out there. I think I know why that one was banned. League of Legends is quite the toxic game sometimes.
For an outsider, confused.
It's okay. Don't worry about it. Hashtag OH. You're
Something
surprised?
I say a lot.
You're surprised? Don't be surprised. Don't be surprised. Hashtag push-ups for my gym bros out there. If you're doing push-ups and you're using that,
See, again, a lot of trainers and freelance trainers might have been really harmed from this.
Exactly. Hashtag sunbathing.
I mean, I might understand that one.
I kind of get it, but if you're legitimately just going sunbathing, or if your cat is sunbathing, you know? Hashtag vaccinate. This one came up around COVID because there was a lot of misinformation going around for vaccines, and they decided, you know what? We want to get rid of vaccinate.
Of course, but this Shadowban goes back to the medical thing
Yes,
we spoke about because
exactly.
vaccinations are still very important, especially for
Exactly.
children and newborns.
And if during those times you were someone who is advocating for vaccines, which vaccines are important, they save many lives. But during that pandemic, when there was a lot of misinformation flying around and everything for it, they decided to get rid of something that was used.
Shout out to all the aunties back there.
Oh God, yeah. This is on you. And so another thing is, by the way, these hashtag bans don't just apply to English hashtags. They're across multiple languages. So like even the font, the script is in let's say the hashtag thyroid in Farsi is banned. I don't know what we did there with thyroid that it got it banned, but it's banned.
That's very unfortunate because so many people go through, there's a lot of thyroid problems.
You want information on thyroid? Nope. If you're Persian, especially, nope.
God, explains why I never get them.
Yeah, and hashtags like akhbar and aflam in Arabic are also banned. Akhbar, which is news for those of you who don't speak Arabic, and aflam is film. It's also banned. So that's just a small portion of the list that I saw.
Oh God.
Just so you know,
Oops.
there were a lot more. So be very careful. You need to always check your hashtags. Two websites that we found that were pretty accurate, but we'll get into how they're not always 100% accurate, by the way, and other ways that you can check if the hashtag is banned. But these two websites seem to be quite reliable. iqhashtags.com, one word, iqhashtags.com, and metahashtags.com. So that's iqhashtags.com. Sponsor us. And meta hashtags, META hashtags, HASHTAGS.com. Those are two websites that you can see these on for yourself and check your hashtags. So, Jana, do you now want to get into how you can reliably check if your account has been shadow banned, besides just checking these hashtags and some of the ways that people can use?
So to understand or to figure out whether you're shadow banned or not, there are a few ways to detect this, or a few indicators, let's call them. One way is whatever platform you've posted on and you're suspicious that you've been shadow banned, log out from that account. You can log in through a different account.
Or incognito.
Or use incognito. That works as well, and it's a bit easier, less of a hassle.
Yep.
And what you can do is search your username, the hashtags you've used, or any specific content. If your name doesn't show up from the first few on the list or at all, then that's an indication that you have been shadow banned.
Oopsie.
Unfortunately. Another way is to check your hashtag reach. So if you check for the hashtag, you search again on Instagram, for example, you can search hashtags, TikTok as well. So when you do that and your content doesn't come up, even especially if you just posted it.
So like you make a new hashtag for this to test, right? Like post a new hashtag, completely unique.
A unique one, yeah. And then you search, you test, and it doesn't come up. Then you're shadow banned.
Yeah, because you're pretty much the only person who posted that. So,
Yep. So, and then there's another interesting way is to monitor the engagement analytics. I think it's a lot of a hassle for so many people.
Yeah, I was
because
gonna
it's
say-
a lot of data.
I was gonna say, you say that's interesting because you like doing that. I like checking it too, but a lot of people hate it.
It's a choice. We do it for a living and we really enjoy it. So.
Yeah, thank God for that alignment.
So what you can do is check your analytics and then you can compare because, for example, Meta gives you a lot of, like, you can check for many months back
impressions,
then.
reach, etc.
And you can compare it back to a couple of months ago. That would give you another indication.
Yeah, assuming that you're someone who's been posting like at the right
Regularly.
times and regularly and all of that, because if there's a sudden drop, it's like, I feel like I don't want people to misunderstand that they can just do one method and then say, yep, I'm Shadowban. You need to do this in combination with each other for it to give results, because as we said, it's already tricky enough with the transparency and stuff, you know, to figure out.
And of course, with the platforms being so calm and quiet about it, it's harder.
Sneaky.
So if you try all of these three methods and you're still not convinced or you're still unsure, there are third-party Shadowban testers, although they're not 100% accurate, but they can be an indication indicator for you to look out. Or you can actually start with those and then test the others because it's an easier, faster way.
Yeah.
But again, we repeat, it's not a reliable tool.
Yeah, so like it's especially for Twitter, like X and Instagram, they've come up with a lot of these to detect. But again, not accurate, and you may have to like run through 3 or 4 of these tools. Most of them are paid as well, so it can get quite a bit costly if you're just like an individual. Even for a company, if you're gonna have subscriptions to multiple of these tools. One thing though, I want to get into the details of shadow bans on different platforms as well, by the way, because most of us are familiar with how shadow bans work on Instagram, where your reach and like your stories, you're posting it and you were getting like 100, 200 views and suddenly it's like 50.
Instagram actually is the easiest platform to realize you've been shadow banned.
Yeah.
It's like automatically it shows because it's like from a very high reach to nothing.
Yeah, and I feel like it's
almost.
because most people use Instagram a lot more daily. Well,
Yeah.
apart from people who are obsessed with TikTok, but
course.
let's say Twitter or YouTube, it's a little bit more difficult to know these things. And it's not even difficult, but it's like rarely spoken about. So let's get into how shadow bans look on these specific platforms, shall we, Jana?
Yes, of course. So with TikTok, they don't use the word shadow ban, which is very interesting, but they do limit your visibility in different ways. So it is triggered by different filters, like if you get reposted from another platform or include borderline contact.
Oh yeah, so
Content.
this actually applies both ways too. If you've ever noticed, because like TikTok, a lot of people, TikTok has really good editing, video editing features. So a lot of people were going and exporting that video and posting it on their Instagram after they're done posting it on TikTok. And if you remember, there was that little like TikTok thing, logo.
Oh, yeah.
Instagram flagged those immediately and was like, no. And then Instagram started adding that to their reels too. So TikTok was like, oh, really? I'm going to do the same. So
I mean, fortunately for us, we get to do segregated content.
yes, but
which
the
is more
battles,
fun.
it is more fun, but not everybody can do that. And the battles of the social media platforms continues.
Of course, yeah. So I do remember that actually. And by the way, you reminded me, it's not only TikTok on Instagram anymore. There has been a lot of research about Meta. It started from January 2025, where logos as well, posting your logo does get you shadow banned sometimes or limit your reach, not shadow banned.
Yes, I feel like that's more related to they know you're a company, you're making money off of this platform, so they want you to actually use the boosting features if you're an
So watch out for that because I get so many like comments like make our logo bigger, bigger, bigger. We want to see it.
You don't want that unless you want to dish out money for ads.
True.
Yeah.
So apart from TikTok and Instagram, there's also YouTube where when it shadow bans, it actually is an easier indicator or the easiest option because it doesn't let you ban, but it does tell you like a hint, hint, you're shadow banned. It disables your comments, suppressing video reach.
And yeah, it does that if you say certain phrases, as we said, or
Definitely,
you know,
yeah.
misinformation. If it thinks that there's misinformation in it. Wait, there is an easier platform for you to find out that you're shadow banned, though. You know which one?
Which one?
Twitter,
Ooh.
X. It's actually made it so easy for you to know that you're, like everybody else knows as well. It kind of puts like this brand of shame on you.
Oh my God.
Yes, it's like, so what happens is that because Twitter has a really serious bot problem. There are like most of the accounts on there are bots actually.
Oh God.
Yeah, so what it does is it filters the tweets from people. So let's say someone has tweeted and there's a bunch of replies underneath it. It has created its own little segment underneath that says show more tweets that, you know, may be like flagged. And then when you look at it, even those individual tweets, you have to click on them separately because it says this person's tweets have been filtered because they might be a spam or a bot account, and then you have to click the view. And half the time when you click that view, it doesn't even show it anymore.
But then that you can figure out that person is shadow banned. How
Yes.
does the person themselves, the user themselves, figure it out?
Yeah, they have to go and check from somewhere else. Like, is my tweet appearing here or not? But like, at least it's easier to see.
It's way easier, definitely.
because you
yeah.
have that like like on your forehead, like a sticker on your forehead. Nope. So it does that. And it also limits, like it blocks, like but unfortunately this can be abused as well, because if a lot of people report your tweet, it ends up getting that filter on it as well.
Yeah, so I think that's worse, by the
Yes.
way, because when you report on other social media accounts, I think if it was a very high amount, it would just get deleted.
Either gets deleted or you get a message saying that this was deleted because of people like
So
flagging
they
it or
get a
reporting it.
different indication, but getting shadow banned just because someone picked on you is
Yeah.
very
Especially
difficult to
on
work
Twitter,
with.
because Twitter has I feel like Twitter is the birth of cancel culture. That's where it came to life, right? A lot of Twitter users are actively like going after certain things and are like more like the activist type. So and there's a whole, it's like segments, you know, like this segment hates this, that segment hates that. So if a segment comes after you, you know, and like mass reports you,
Oh,
if you have a fight on Twitter with a certain community, you're
don't make enemies.
yeah, you're kind of bound to be shadow banned on there. So yeah, that's that. Those are ways in which different platforms shadow ban you. Now I kind of want to get into the algorithm bias aspect of things. Do you think the algorithm has bias, or is it just the people feeding it the reports based on their biases and then getting you shadow banned? What do you think it is?
So, as everyone is actually aware of, we hear this topic a lot. There seem to be, or there has been a certain bias with the algorithm, but because of the awareness that we've seen and how people have stepped up and spoke about the topic, I think that's improving.
I feel like it's putting a pressure on social media companies that, you know, your users are no longer blindfolded, basically, and they're demanding better from you. And since money comes from your users, they now have an obligation to get their act straight and show less bias and fix their algorithm. I feel like, yeah.
Of course, and I do feel like, as we mentioned in the previous podcast, that Gen Z likes reality. I do
Yep.
feel like they're aware that Gen Z is a very difficult generation, let's say, to deal with, and they'll actually try their best to be as fair as possible and as ethical as possible.
Yeah, like they cannot get away with it anymore, basically, because remember how I said Gen Z is trying to make the world better at this point, you know? One of the fires it's trying to put out is like algorithm bias as well, and like which applies to like freedom of speech and so on and so forth. So yeah, it's Gen Z's trying to force everyone to be better.
Yes.
Because they understand the purchasing power that they have as well. So yeah, but I feel like, yeah, a part of it is also people feeding it reports, though. It's not all algorithm bias. A lot of the times it's just
100%.
mean people.
If you see people interested in a certain thing, that will definitely affect the algorithm. Or if your audience, let's say, is a majority of your audience is logging in at the same time and interacting with you at a specific time frame, that will definitely play with the algorithms, definitely.
Yeah, or the cancel culture, even like they just don't like you anymore and they just want to report everything, you know? So yeah, that plays a role into it as well. Perfect. Now just to sum everything up then. So let's just have a quick recap of everything that we discussed in this podcast episode.
Okay, so here is your summary of what we spoke about today in our podcast. So first of all, to regularly view platform rules and updates, as guidelines often change without noticing. That's one very important point. Avoid using banned or overused hashtag that may trigger algorithm restrictions. So again, we've mentioned a lot of tips for that.
Yep, use those websites. I spelled it out for you.
We gave you the hint, not the hint.
More than a hint, yeah.
More than hints. And then steer clear of excessive automation, such as mass following or unfollowing or bot-driven engagement.
Yeah, be careful. Again, those bot accounts that you've gotten that have a bunch of like followers, those were probably botted followers. So
Please never buy followers.
never
also.
buy followers, never buy accounts. Please don't do that.
100%. And then lastly, post original, high quality content that aligns with community standards to reduce the risk of reports and flags.
Yes, and again, always keep an eye out on your engagement, especially if you are an actual like full-on content creator or a company. You need to always be on top of your game and notice the slightest change. Think of your Instagram or social media accounts as your pet, okay?
Yes. As your baby.
It's your pet. It's not even your baby. It's your pet, because they can't speak to you like a normal person does. But you gotta look out for the signs. If your cat has a toothache and it stops eating food,
I do agree. And social media accounts became very important. So please take care of your accounts.
Yes, it is. And yeah, that's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. Here's a quick teaser for what we'll be doing next, guys. There's something big coming. We plan to start a subreddit very soon. So we will be taking in questions and anecdotes from you guys who are listening, and we will be reading these out on our podcast. We will be answering your questions, anything you have. So yeah, keep an eye out on our social media for this. 27 Marketing, okay, across different social media. Looking forward to hearing from you guys.
Yes.
But yeah, it's a long way off. Just keep an eye out for that announcement. I'm giving you a little teaser for this.
Yeah.
And just keep an eye
For
out.
now, write your inquiries
Yes.
down, note them down, and
Prepare-
your anecdotes. We
Yes.
really enjoy anecdotes.
Prepare your questions. It's gonna be those story time moments at some point on this podcast. Take care, guys. See you in the next one.
Bye.